Don't miss over 10 tips and tricks to make the new Necron Codex work.
Pocket bits.
What's up, hobby maniacs? I'm Baer, and today we are going over a book that I wasn't too excited about at first, but then once I got my little peepers in here and started looking at all this stuff, and of course I do have a Necron Army, I got really excited because I think this book is for the money. This book is very well-rounded, and I think a lot of folks, both beginner and veteran players, can make an army work with a minimal amount of effort. Now, can you go to Adepticon and place top 16 with just throwing some warriors on the table? Probably not. So don't try that. But if you just want to pick up the Start Collecting box or a half of a Forge Main box or something like that, paint up some robots, because let's face it, it's just metal, wash, and dry brush. It's pretty easy to do to make them look amazing, on the tabletop with a little bit of basing, get that 3-color standard plus, or take it to the next level with a whole bunch more detail work. It's very easy to do with Necrons, right? So I could see a lot of people coming on board with Necrons and playing them and having a lot of fun with a little bit of effort. And that's really what it's about in this day and age with this hobby. Everybody's going in 10 different directions, from Shadespire to Legion to everything else out there. I'm just genuinely impressed with this book. So let's put it over on the paint table and jump right in to see what will make this army work. So here it is, the brand new Necron Codex from Games Workshop. There is data cards. I've misplaced them. They're $15 from GW. The new Codex is $40. I think it's 120 pages. Yep, we'll go with 120 pages or so. It's gonna have a whole bunch of stuff in here. You've got your fluffy section, whatever. Everybody's already kind of knows about that stuff. Of course, it is updated a little bit more to the recent events, but not too much. I was a little disappointed with kind of where they're at on the fluff. Then you've got all of the great looking stuff in here when it comes to models, like how to paint your stuff, take it really to the next level, get those hobby juices going. And then you've got all the rules and everything, all the data sheets, all the new special rules and such. And then you've got your dynastic codes, your stratagems, powers of Satan, the artifacts, and there's all sorts of stuff that we're going to talk about. Of course, the book itself is wonderfully laid out. We saw this in an earlier leak where somebody got a hold of the digital version and put it up on YouTube, and that was promptly taken down by Games Workshop with absolutely within their rights to do such. You just can't go showing everything in any of their format. It's just it's kind of, not only is it wrong, but it's disrespectful, and it's quite possibly illegal. But anyways, I digress. Lots of cool content in here. You got your bestiary talking about all of the different units and models and things, and then of course all the great painted stuff right there. I personally don't like this black and green paint scheme. All my stuff is it's metal with like some blues and reds, just a little kind of like a weird color, to be quite honest. It reminds me of some of those summer popsicles from back in the day, but I call them the Americrons, because well, that's what they look like. Today we're just gonna kind of go over more than 10 things. I have a checklist here, and it's actually 11 or 12, and go over kind of a mock army list. And with the mock army list, we just basically updated kind of my personal existing models that were a lot of stuff that you saw in 5th edition and 6th edition armies, kind of over to the new edition, and just kind of a little brief overview of kind of how that type of army would do in 8th edition 40k. Now granted, like I said in the intro, you're not going to win Adepticon, you're not going to get the top 16. You are going to be able to be resilient and hold some objectives and have some fun with your buddies and stuff like that. And I think at the end of the day, that's kind of what counts. It's not, if you want to play OP, you want to play crazy stuff, and you want to chase that rabbit, then hey, that's fine. And there's probably going to be a lot more changes coming, and that's why we didn't really spam a lot of HQs and stuff in here, because a lot of folks on the street are saying, hey, GW might restrict on how many HQs and such you can take. So this so the army list, we're going to talk about that a little bit. So first off, let's talk about the general special rules. There's reanimation protocols, haven't changed from the index. Living metal hasn't changed from the index. The dynastic codes are their traits or the regiments or the traitor legion, whatever you want to call them. These are special rules you get if the unit has the dynasty bracket keyword on its little section here. Now, two things to note: there's faction keywords and keywords. Faction keywords, of course, is like the army, like Imperium, to play Imperium suit. or something like that. Keywords are just inside of kind of the unit. We'll go with you know, flowchart or whatever you want to call it. It's just a classification that kind of try to keep things organized. So if you are playing a battle forged army and you have a detachment that's all the same dynasty, then you're going to get one of these special abilities over here. And there isn't as many as some stuff out there, but it's still kind of cool to see. You got Sawtek, Novak, Nilak, Neprika, and Mefrit. And me personally, for my money, I like the Mefrit because it's going to give you an extra armor pen at half range. Sawtek is good because it allows you to advance and then turns those weapons into assault without the penalty to firing them. Normally it's like -1. So all your heavies and all your rapid fires turn into assault weapons. Novak, that is how you say it. Reroll failed hit rolls in the fight phase for units with this code. They're charged to perform a heroic invention or charge themselves. And Neolak, if they don't move, they get to reroll ones for units when they shoot, including firing Overwatch, as long as they didn't move or disembark out of a transport. And Nefrekt, get wrecked. Whenever a unit with this code advances, add 6 to its movement phase for that movement characteristic. So, you know, say they move 6, well, now they're going to go 6. If they're getting a wave of command or my will be done ability, then they're going to go 13. That's assuming they have a base movement of 6. So not too bad right there. They're definitely trucking it across the battlefield there. So that's the dynastic codes. There are a couple of units that aren't going to, kind of like what we saw with some of the regimental stuff and some of the Tau things when it came to like the Vespids and stuff. They're not going to take away from you getting these dynastic codes if they are in your army. Like, so some of the Triarch stuff, the Citan, Shards, and the Traveler and Illuminator Xeris as well. The traits overview, there's lots of stratagems, we're going to talk about those. The traits are pretty decent, to be quite honest, themselves. I think there's only 2 probably worth taking, and the first one, of course, is Immortal Pride. These are going to work well in warrior armies here because you're going to automatically pass morale checks for any unit within 6 of your Warlord. In addition, your Warlord can attempt to deny 1 psychic power, which is a huge downfall to the Necrons, unless you take a green prism from a spider, which I don't think probably is worth taking it, so this is definitely worth having. The Implacable Conqueror may reroll failed charge rolls for friendly Dynasty units while they were within 6 inches of your Warlord. Probably worth taking if you're doing like a Wraith build or maybe something with the Citan. It's just something maybe worth mentioning, but I don't think the other ones are really that great. So those are probably the 2 you're looking at taking. And then there's Dynasty coded Warlord traits here, and I think the only one really worth talking about is the Sawtek, which I believe is the Stormlords. And this is all going to come full circle here in a minute when we start breaking down some of these tactics in army lists. But once per battle, you can reroll a single hit roll, wound roll, or damage roll made for your Warlord, which is similar to what we saw in the Tau book. In addition, if your army is Battleforged, your Warlord is on the table, which I think, in theory, somebody fact check me here, if as soon as you start setting up and start rolling for things, like using stratagems before the game begins, I think you can get these. This would count at that point if your Warlord is on the battlefield. Roll a d6 each time you spend a command point to use a stratagem, and on a 5 up, that command point is immediately refunded. So it's not per stratagem, it's per command point used in that stratagem. Definitely worth mentioning there. Here's all your points costs. And while we're at it, before I forget, like I did with the Tau book, here are some notable points changes. You can just kind of pause it and read through it yourself right there. Those are some of the notable changes. A lot of stuff came down, to be quite honest, in Doom Sights, Night Sights, Ghost Arcs a little bit, the Destroyers, anything else really super worth mentioning. Pretty much a lot of stuff came down that was good to see. Nightbringer, the Transcendent, Citan, I think that's all the major stuff there. But again, here's all the points costs. And what I like to do is I'll take a picture of them and then I'll print it out on my own, and I'll fold this up and keep it in my Codex. So as I'm going through looking at things to see how much they cost total, I'll kind of reference the printout just so I can have that handy and not have to flip back to the back of the book here, which I find to be quite convenient. All right, let's talk about some stratagems. Stratagems, there's a bunch in here. I don't even know how many. I don't have the specific total for you, but there's really only a couple that I think are kind of stand out. The emergency invasion beam is nice, so if you're embarking stuff or leaving them on the tomb world, as it's called, to bring them in via invasion beams off one of the scythes, or the monolith, well, if those are destroyed and they're the last one on the table and they are destroyed, your units are also destroyed. They're left on the tomb world, but you can port them in if you have a command point via the emergency invasion beam. The enhanced invasion beam allows you to just deploy them the normal within 3 inches of the model itself, whether it's a monolith or a scythe, and less than 1 inch away from, or excuse me, more than 1 inch away from enemy models. This one lets you bring in 2 instead of just the 1 that you can do normally. So those are kind of cool combos and lets you get around things and through things and yada yada, different little strategies there that I think are worth talking about. Extermination Protocols. There's a lot of people talking about this because of Destroy Lords or Destroyers getting the reroll failed hit and wound rolls for that unit until the end of the phase. Remember, they have a hardwired reroll ones already into them, but this kind of, you know, may help them out a bit, but I feel like it's a little bit of overkill. But hey, overkill is kind of where it's at in the 8th edition, so I definitely thought it was worth mentioning. The Pharaoh's Will is a good little stratagem worth talking about because it allows your Overlord to use their My Will Be Done or their Wave of Command ability twice in, or just twice. That model can immediately use that ability for a second time this turn. And what that does is both of those abilities are something where you pick a Necron infantry unit within 6 inches and it allows them to get +1 to their hits, +1 to their advance, and I think +1 to their charge rolls, if I'm not mistaken. So those are, I mean, it's pretty good, and Stormlord has an ability to allow you to do it twice, but only if it's keyed to his dynastic keyword. So while these are not keyed to a dynastic code or dynastic keyword, normally the Stormlords to do it twice, i.e. do it 4 times, is keyed to his specific dynasty. But it's worth talking about. For 1 command point, being able to give out +1 to all units within 6 could be pretty powerful. Just worth mentioning. Cosmic Powers, we're going to talk about this with a little bit of Satan tech. Satans are not to be disregarded or underestimated in any regards in this book. They are maybe some hidden tech, some sleepers, get it, in this book that could, there's a couple of powerful combos that if you get them off and you spend the points, it is possible that they can do some heavy damage on the tabletop. Is it going to get you top 16 in Adepticon or a major event? I doubt it. But it is definitely worth being aware of on the tabletop, at least in your local games here. And what this is going to do, it's going to allow you to swap out one of your powers of Satan with the power of your choice, which is super important when we start talking about the restrictions to these powers here in a second. The only keyed Dynasty stratagem that I particularly like is this 2 command point Reclaim a Lost Empire one, which allows you to select a Neolac unit from your army. If the unit is within 3 inches of an objective marker, did not move for any reason, until the start of your next turn, you can add 1 to saving throws and increase the attack characteristics of models from that unit by 1. So it really allows them to hold the line. And when you're going to see some of the combos that we're about to talk about with Reanimation Protocols and just being able to reroll 1s on them or allow or have a +1, do it multiple times, embark things on ghost arcs, do all sorts of craziness. The ability for the Necron robots to just kind of stick around is ridiculous, and the fact that now you can add +1 to their saving throw is another free modifier to your dice before you even roll them, setting the stage for success even before you pick up your dice. So it's really important to talk about. Now, since we're already back here, let's talk about the powers of Satan. A lot of people are just like, whatever, Satan, they're stupid, they're not good anymore, blah, 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 blah. Let's talk about Satan. Satan, there's 3 different Satans plus the Vault. They're 225, 225. I think the Transcendent's 225, the Deceiver's 225, and the Nightbringer's 210. The Vault, which is that huge, ginormous, super monolith with a little Necron in the middle, is 496. And it might be 496, depending on what you're thinking. It may be 496 that you have to have in your army. Obviously, it's not going to be for every build, but it is very powerful nonetheless. Now, the key here, these powers are done during the movement phase. Why that is super important is because that you can single out anything you want depending on how the power is worded in the movement phase, in the psychic phase even. Remember, you can target characters unless there's a restriction on the ability or the weapon or the whatever that's doing it. You can always pick characters if they are in range if it's not the shooting phase. The shooting phase is the only thing that specifically says you cannot target characters unless they're at the closest, and of course there's some FAQ caveats and beta caveats as well. But unless it says otherwise, you can do so in both the psychic phase and obviously the movement phase when these powers go off. Now the Transdimensional Thunderbolt has a restriction on what you can target. You can only pick a character if it has 10 or more wounds and is the closest enemy model to the Catan Shard. Well, all these other ones do not have such restrictions. Well, this one is the closest visible enemy unit. So out of the 6 powers, 4 of them allow you to target whatever you want. And some of them do D6 mortal wounds, which is in most cases more than enough to deal with any pesky characters that are on the tabletop. All of these deal out crazy amounts of mortal wounds. Some things can do it more than once. The key here is that you can choose your powers, one of each, but you cannot choose the same one twice until everyone has been chosen in your army. Each Catan gets 2, and the Vault gets 4 of these powers. So theoretically, if you take 4 Catans, you can choose each one of these powers and then a second of your choice and a 2 times 2 of your choice if you want. Therefore, kind of stacking what abilities you can do multiple times. There's no restriction. These aren't psychic powers. You can do them multiple times. They're not stratagems. You can do them multiple times. So say you have pick 2 of the good, and the good ones right here are probably Cosmic Fire, Time Zero, or Sky Falling Stars. They're all very good. The Transdimensional Thunderbolt kind of blossoms out, but again, you can't target characters. So you can pick any 2 of these. Now, there's the Cosmic Power one where it allows you to switch one, so you can take a Buster one, switch it out, and now you could have, in theory, 3 of the same power to do each turn. Some of these do D3 mortal, some of these do D6 on a 4-up, etc., etc. You can stack the deck here and just be dealing out mortal wounds all day from Catan models that aren't too shabby. And if there are some restrictions handed out where HQs, you're not allowed to take multiples, you can still take these guys because they are elites, and the Transcendent is a heavy, and the Tesseract Vault is a Lord of War. So there shouldn't be any restrictions besides your detachment, your normal detachment, fitting stuff into detachments and your points to really kind of restrict on what you're doing here. Furthermore, these guys can fly. They are characters, so they're not going to be targeted out because they have less than 10 wounds. So in theory, if you take some warriors and such, you will be able to protect these guys. Warriors are very resilient to 12 points each. A squad of 20 is going to run you to 240 points. So there's only, there's a finite amount of stuff that you could fit in your army. However, these guys are really dealing out a lot of damage. They have a lot of potential here once you start going through and grinding out the numbers on what you can do with them. Is it for everybody? No. Is it OP? Probably not. But is it funsies? Yeah, it probably is. And it's not worth just saying, oh, I have had all these Catan models for 10 years and I haven't been able to play with them. Well, now there's a couple of builds that you could have some fun with, and if you have the ginormous Tesseract Vault, well, you could play with that too. And that thing is no joke either. And let's just touch on that real quick. This is all our Catan / Vault tech here, I suppose you could say. So the Tesseract Vault has 28 wounds, so it's basically a Baneblade / Shadow Sword chassis. It's toughness 7, unfortunately not as strong as toughness 8. It is strength 8. You're going to be shooting on a 3. It is Dynasty, so you're going to be able to get your +1s and your rerolls for your overlapping, either your Overlords, which are going to give out reroll 1s, or your perhaps normal Lords, which are going to allow you to reroll wounds of 1s. And then if you have My Will Be Done or the Command Wave, then you get +1 to all of your rolls as well. So there's a lot of overlapping benefits here. 20 shots with this. You have 4 of these weapons at strength 7. Now if you take one of the dynasties that give you an -1 AP at half range at 12 inches, in theory you could be dealing out this many strength 7 or 20 strength 7s that hit on quite possibly 2s, re-rolling 1s, that do neg 1 AP, and you know, if you're spitting out 20 of these things, you're probably going to roll 3 6s, give or take. I mean, the odds are good, right? Causes 3 hits. So, I mean, 2s re-roll 1s with 9 extra shots. You're looking at upwards of 25 to 28 shots with this thing, all dealing, you know, neg 1 to their save. I mean, it's death by paper cuts at this point, and the fact that it can rock out to, let's see, it can use a number of different powers equal to the number of the damage table. So it can do 3 powers of the Satan each turn. This thing is a literal fortress of mortal wound and paper cut firepower right here. That's pretty resilient with a 4-up invulnerable and 28 wounds. It's tough to 7. I mean, and remember too, it is a vehicle, and there is a stratagem that allows you to use the top roll. I think it's this one. Nope, it's not this one. Oh, this was one we should have talked about too. That allows you to get reanimation protocols for any canoptic squad, like your wraiths and stuff. I think it's this one here. Yeah, damage control overdrive allows you for 1 command point to use your top line here until it's destroyed. So you've got some options here. $4.96. It's pricey. It's Baneblade pricey, but we've all seen what a Baneblade does on the table, and this thing definitely does just as much as a Baneblade, if not more, with all of the crazy Satan psychic powers that you can spit out of this thing. So just some food for thought there. All right, let's talk about some of the HQs real quick, and keywords. So one thing I want to point out is that the destroyers are actually infantry models, which, unless they say otherwise, you can teleport them in and teleport them around and pick them up and put them down with the Veil of Darkness, unless it only says warrior models. And I think there was something that did say warrior models. I forget which one. And it might have been Ghost Ark. You can't embark infantry models that aren't warrior character, I think. There's a lot of little caveats in here, but for the most part, everything overlaps wonderfully. And that's why I was saying it's so easy for beginners and veterans alike to pick this up. Imhotep is clocking in at 200 points. And in my little army list here, I kind of just did a base army, but I was like thinking about it at the end, and I was like, man, you could really kind of port Imhotep in here. He's a straight G. Like I said, he's got that cool ability that allows you to activate and target Sawtech infantry to get 1 to the advanced charge and hit rolls. So you can do 2 if you're taking Sawtech. I'm not sure if it's worth taking Sawtech. I think Mephrids might be the way to go, because you're getting that with Gauss Flares, the ability to either hit on a +1 and do neg 1 damage at 12-inch range. Yeah, you might not want to be at 12-inch range, but I feel like I said, they're incredibly resilient. So you might lose a few guys, and there's some tricks there that you can do too. He's got a 4-up invulnerable save. He does mortal wounds with the Lord of Storm ability. He was always super fun in that regard. He's got the Gauntlet of Fire again, and a Staff of the Destroyer. Both great weapons. He's just very, very, very well-rounded in general. I think he automatically comes with Immortal Pride Warlord trait, which allows you again to get the command points back and also reroll 1 dice off that list per game. So not too shabby at all. Definitely worth a consideration, I feel like, if you just want to kind of pocket in a quick patrol detachment of these guys just to get him and his abilities. Because normally his My Will Be Done ability does not have a restriction on a dynastic keyword. So he can order around, say, the Mephrit warriors or whatever in your army, but if you want to do it twice, you have to be his warriors. So just something to think about, some food for thought. Then there's some interesting mechanics with the Technomancer abilities, which are your Cryptex or your named Cryptech duders right here are going to have. And all that's saying is that any friendly Necron units within 3 inches of any of these characters allow you to add 1 to your reanimation protocol. So normally it's on a 5, so now you're going to be down to a 4, which is pretty respectable to get dudes back. And remember, you always get to roll for dudes that have died, or I guess technically they're still on the battlefield, unless they flee the battlefield through morale from combat, or, you know, from just taking a morale check at the end of it from losing too many. But remember, there is that Warlord trait that we talked about that's probably worth taking unless you take the Stormlord, and he has to be your Warlord. I'm not sure if that's the case. But if he isn't, then it's definitely worth taking the Immortal Pride one right here. Oh, excuse me. Okay, I misspoke. So the Immortal Pride is definitely worth taking. Stormlord is the saw tag, and Stormlord allows you to get the command points back one there. So I feel like this is probably better in warrior builds, but if you want to take the Stormlord and take some Satan that would be funsies, this one might be a little bit better. Obviously you can't have two warlords, but so you're gonna have to kind of decide which one's better for you at that point. So that's your Cryptek tech that's definitely worth being cognizant of, and paired up with reanimation protocols is very good. And you know what? There was another relic in here that we forgot to talk about that is also very good. It was the one where you keep getting wounds back. It's this casket. Yes. So it allows you to get D3 lost wounds, and this is only if your model has the Philastery. Regains D3 wounds at the beginning of your opponent's turn, as well as when it would normally activate during your turn. So it's very cool to, you know, just kind of keep stacking up your wounds right there. Is it worth taking with everything? No, probably not. Maybe burn a stratagem point and kind of pick up some of these if you want. The Nightmare Shroud is definitely worth taking because you're going to add to your save characteristics. The Supernal Weave is pretty good because it's going to allow you to buff your stat lines, but at some point it's just kind of too much to beef up your overlords and stuff. But if your overlord is your key to your strategy and holding the line with this Immortal Pride ability, it's probably not a bad idea to pick up some of these relics. And again, you can spend a stratagem and get extra relics besides the one that you already get just for having a character in a battle-forged army. Okay, so destroyers, remember, they are infantry. They can fly. It's definitely worth something to note. Your overlords and your lords are actually quite affordable, believe it or not. An overlord's gonna, with a war scythe and a resorb, is gonna clock in around 120, 125. I think it's actually upwards. It's 128. A lord himself is gonna clock in at like 119, and these guys paired together are gonna allow you to reroll your ones to hit and your ones to wound. Destroyer Lord kind of does the same thing, but with reroll wounds. So he's like just basically a lesser, he's a lord, but a little bit more resilient because of his stat lines right there. And then again, remember, you can beef him up with all that stuff there. You can make him your warlord even, you know, to give you better ability to just kind of port around the battlefield with a 10-inch move right there. We talked about invasion beams. We talked about some dirty stuff. We talked about the Satans in the vaults. Let's talk about the Ghost Arc, because there's a nifty little ability with the Ghost Arc that I think some folks may have overlooked. So the Ghost Arc's really nifty. It's 160 points. It doesn't have quite the broadside ability that it used to. It's just going to have this rapid fire 5 weapon right here. But again, remember, if you're taking the Mephred Dynasty, that would be strength 4 -2 AP, which is kind of dirty. It's going to get through on some people and catch them slipping. Quantum shielding hasn't changed the way that works. Hovering, you're going to measure to the hull because the stems are really small, or the base is really small. It can only carry 10 dudes. But why this is important is because from the reading this right here, it almost appears like you can put a squad in here and you are allowed to make reanimation protocols for models that fled the battlefield through morale. So if you embark them, say you had a squad of 20 or whatever, and you lost, I don't know, 10 morale or something. Well, you can't go over the starting number here, but say it's a little bit different. You're down to 5, and 5 of those you lost to morale. Well, you might be able to embark them and roll for those, get those back, and they're embarked. Furthermore, it has a bubble ability to also allow you reanimation protocols for slain models within 3 inches of any Ghost Arc. So at the end of your movement phase. So it's allowing you to kind of double dip outside of the normal reanimation protocol sequence as well, kind of like the Resorb does. And I think it says you can't do it if you do the Resorb or the Orb of Eternity. But remember, those are once per game abilities, this is not. So you pop your Res Orb, and then, you know, as long as you have your Ghost Arc laying around, well, you can still do it. It's not too shabby. For 160 points, it's probably just worth running one, just, you know, to have extra ability and extra resiliency in your army, but just something worth mentioning there. The Night Sights are great. 160 points, I believe. Now, yep, 160, so it'd be 320. And again, these guys are great because if you take Mefret, even the barges, if you take the Mefret, you're going to be -1 at half range. These guys can get on station pretty quick because of their movement and be within 12 inches of just about anything, and then allow you to get dudes out, again, probably within half range, giving that -1 extra AP that's going to catch a lot of people slipping with the overwhelming firepower. Just seems like good math right there. Now, these don't have as many shots as the Annihilation barges, which are 133 now. And here they are with the Twin Tesla Destructor, which is going to be 8 shots. And again, Dynasty, so you can rock out and get that -1 ability. Again, probably going to have +1 to the rolls, or reroll 1s to the rolls, depending on how you want to do it. I guess you can't really give +1 because the Thy Will Be Done is only for infantry. Yep, it sure is. So at best, you're just going to have the rerolls, reroll 1 and reroll 1s to wound. But it's still pretty powerful in and of itself. So that's kind of the stuff that I wanted to touch on. The Satans, again, I don't think they're bad, but I don't think they're worth fielding in onesies. I think you kind of got to go deep or go home when it comes to the Satans. Let's talk about a quick list real quick that I think a lot of folks out there may appreciate, because this is very similar to what a lot of folks were running back in the day. I just kind of threw some stuff in there that I knew I had painted, which may be the case for a lot of you out there. An Overlord and a Lord, that's the Wombo combo where you get, you know, the reroll 1s to hit and the reroll 1s to wound. A couple of Cryptex just to get your reanimations on a +1, which is technically at 4. 20 warriors times 3, which would be 720 points. Now you could split this up. This is just a brief overview. This is not specifically put into any detachment level, but you could split some of these into 10s and then take a patrol with like the Stormlord himself, and then, or you could split these up because Cryptex are HQs and have 2 battalions as well, you know, with your troops. It just kind of depends on how you want to do it. Remember, the troops can be down to 10. 2 Night Sights because they can get on station with Mefret. I feel like that's pretty good firepower. A Ghost Arc and 2 Annihilation barges for 266. So that's going to give you about 856 before you decide or not decide to, you know, go ahead and take the Stormlord in there and kind of switch things around if you want. Gives you a little bit of wiggle room on some points, and it's a pretty popular amount of models that most folks out there, if you've been playing Necrons for a while before 7th edition, you're probably going to have these already painted up and ready to go. And also, this is basically 2 of the Start Collecting boxes with a few extra things with the barges, the Arc, and the sights right there. So pretty easy to do as far as that goes. And all of my Cryptex are just converted from Lich Guard. So you know, you pick up a box of Lich Guard, it comes with 5 models. You can basically convert up a lot of different things out of the box to be Cryptex, air quotes. And, you know, you save a lot of money because it's a $33 box instead of spending $33 for 1 model. You know what I mean? It's all about saving money and hobby and strong in that regard. So that is pretty much my more than top 10 points to making the Necron Army work. Of course, I gave you 2 big build list ideas there. The converting over 5th, 6th edition builds to 8th edition, and also some crazy Satan tech to kind of fit in here. I just think the Vault, if I had one painted up, I'd be playing with it all day, every day. It just seems very, very strong for 500 points. I can't wait to see if I can find somebody with one or proxy one on the tabletop just to see what exactly it can do, because I've got high hopes for that thing right there. And of course, if you're an OG player and you got those Satan laying around, hey, well, easy game, easy life. It's time to get to work and make the old Star Gods work for you. So if you like these kind of features here on the channel, I encourage you to work out those hobby muscles. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the little bell icon so you get the notifications and can be the very first to like, comment on all our videos.
Deleted scenes, bonus content, and all the interviews and post-game wrap-up videos can be located in the Hall of Veterans on thelongwar.net. Visit thelongwar.net today and try a week completely free with no strings attached. That's not all. Thelongwar.net is also your hobby resource for exclusive early access with an ad-free experience to all your favorite videos. Members of the Hall of Veterans gain early exclusive access to multiple hobby videos.